Earlier this week, I read an excellent paper. It was so well written, and I was so excited to read it that I wanted to talk about it with you today. The reason why I became excited about the paper was because it was so carefully written in a very reader-friendly manner. That was true for all the sections of the paper, including the abstract. Let's talk about how the abstract of the paper was constructed. We will learn that the structure of an abstract can be modified a little from the standard format, as long as the author's intention is clear in the message. Hi everyone, welcome to the Foundational Skills in Life Sciences podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Synaptologica. We discuss the skills that life science scholars learn, use, and improve throughout professional activities. Your benefit is expressed in my motto, learn the skills, enjoy academic life. Today's episode. In the last episode, episode 51, we talked about an abstract that was not written well. In today's episode, let's talk about an abstract that was written very well. I found that the author's writing attitude was careful and very reader-friendly throughout the paper. Naturally, the abstract was written in the same manner. The quality of the abstract was very high. The goal of today's episode is to examine how its abstract was constructed. Bibliographic information of the paper. The title of the paper is, quote, A Meta-Analysis of Technology Use and Cognitive Aging, close quote. The paper was published in a journal, Nature Human Behaviour. It was published in April of 2025, that is in the last month as of this recording. It was published as online ahead of print, so the volume number and page numbers were not assigned yet as of this recording. I think that the topic is interesting to many of you. The paper could be categorized at the border of the basic science field and the clinical science field. I hope you will enjoy reading it, irrespective of whether you are in basic or clinical sciences, or whether you are a scientist or not. In the episode description, I will show you two links to the paper. One link is to the database PubMed, and the other link is to the paper webpage on the journal website. Please note that this is not an open access paper. It means that to access the entire paper, you would need institutional subscription or a personal account. But let me also add that at least the abstract is accessible on both websites for free without any signing in. Style of the paper. The title of the paper contained a word, meta-analysis. The term meta-analysis means the analysis of the papers that already analyzed data. In other words, the authors of a meta-analysis paper will review the existing primary research papers and statistically analyze their numerical results. This way, the meta-analysis authors can combine multiple independent studies to answer a specific research question. So this paper itself is not a primary research paper, but still, we can understand the structure of this abstract when we use our principle of 8 structural components that we have been talking about. Now, before moving on, let's briefly review them. I have been emphasizing that good abstracts of primary research papers will often have 8 structural components. Typically, they will appear in the following order. 1. The background, a brief and broad introduction to the research topic. 2. The known, a known fact or two in the specific field, with special respect to the following unknown component. 3. The unknown, an unknown thing in the specific field. Practically, it can also take the form of the question, the hypothesis, the problem to be investigated in the work, or the urgent or unmet need to be addressed, the rationale or the objective of the work. 4. The result overview, a brief overview of the results in the paper. 5. The the methods, a concise description of the methods or experimental procedures used in the work. 6. The results, brief descriptions of important results of the work. 7. The conclusions, a brief concluding statement that summarizes the results. And 8. The implications, the interpretations and implications of the work. We made a list of these, and we explained the individual components. If you are not sure about them, or if you are new to my podcast, please check the episode number 39. Now let's get to the meat of the paper. Information about the paper content. Again, the title of the paper was, quote, a meta-analysis of technology use and cognitive aging, close quote. The paper was about cognitive capabilities of the elderly people. You might visualize your grandparents, your parents, or maybe yourself. As people age, there is a tendency for cognitive functions to decline. Is this cognitive aging affected by whether those people use digital technology? That's what the title means. The point in this episode is not the content itself or what the authors claim, but the point is how the abstract was constructed beautifully. I think that the beauty of this abstract lies in the first 3 components. Structure of the abstract. Let's look at the details of the abstract. It has 12 sentences. The first sentence says the background component. It says that elderly people now are reaching the age when dementia could start. Those people also form the first generation who have seen a radical transition from analog-only experiences to the development and extension of digital technology. The second sentence shows the unknown component. It is a question. Did digital technology harm the cognitive function of those people, or did the technology help them preserve the cognitive function? This is the main question that the authors wanted to address in the paper. Then this unknown component is followed by 2 known components. Each known component is explained in each sentence. The third sentence is the first of the 2 known components. It explains one hypothesis. According to the so-called digital dementia hypothesis, using technology will be bad for the cognitive functions. The fourth sentence is the second of the 2 known components. It explains an alternative hypothesis. According to the so-called technological reserve hypothesis, using technology will be good for the cognitive functions. So these 2 known components clearly state the 2 contrasting hypotheses. Which of the 2 hypotheses is correct? This was the question posed by the unknown component. By these first 4 sentences, the authors carefully explained the background, the known, and the unknown components. At this moment, as a reader, I clearly understood what the authors wanted to do in this work. Then, as if the authors know what I'm thinking about, the 5th sentence explains what they did. It was a combination of the unknown, the result overview, and the methods components. The sentence starts by saying, quote, "We tested these hypotheses," close quote. This is a combination of the unknown and the result overview components. Then the sentence continues to mention how they did the work. It was by meta-analysis of published studies. This is a part of the methods component. The 6th sentence adds information to the methods component. This sentence describes what type of published studies were included in this work. Then the following 5 sentences talk about what the authors found. So these correspond to 5 results of the results component. The 7th sentence reports result number 1. The 8th sentence reports result number 2. The 9th sentence reports result number 3. The 10th sentence reports the result number 4. And the 11th sentence reports the result number 5. The most important part is the result number 3 out of 5 in the 9th sentence. It says that the authors found a clear association. The cognitive problems were less likely to happen in the elderly people who were exposed to digital technologies. In other words, using technology is associated with good cognitive functions. So the result is consistent with the technological reserve hypothesis, one of the two starting hypotheses, or one of the two knowns for this work. The 12th and the last sentence is the implications component. This sentence discusses future directions. What type of work is further necessary? Now that we have analyzed the abstract, I would like to talk about 3 comments. Comment 1. After reading this abstract, I felt very satisfied because the author's intention was very clear. The authors wanted readers to understand the content, and to make it possible, the authors explained the necessary details in the form of the knowns. As I mentioned earlier, the topic of the paper and the author's conclusions are not important for us in this episode. Instead, the important thing for us is to know that the abstract structure is very important. And that is what we want to learn. I think the author's intention is very clear because the first 3 structural components are clearly described. They are the background, the known, and the unknown components. These 3 components set the stage for the readers to understand the content. And if the 3 components are written clearly like this, the readers will easily follow what the authors would say in the rest of the abstract. When you read this abstract yourself, you will find that these authors wrote it with the readers in mind. And in my view, this type of careful and reader-friendly authors will guide us very smoothly throughout the rest of the paper too. There's no guarantee, but I would say that there's a high chance that good writers of an abstract will be good writers of the rest of the paper. Comment 2. One of the things that I noticed in this abstract is that the conclusions component was missing. The conclusions component would have been presented as an independent statement after 5 sentences for the results component. But when I read the abstract, I did not find it strange. This was because the result number 3 clearly answered the question that was posed in the unknown component earlier in the abstract. It seems that the authors thought that the result number 3 would effectively play the role of the conclusions component, so there would be no need for an independent conclusions component. And I agree that this works well for this abstract. Comment 3. Let me add that the structure of this abstract showed a little variation from the standard one that I have been emphasizing in my episodes. And I would say that these variations were not a problem at all in this abstract. There were 2 variations. The first variation was that the order of the 3 starting structural components out of 8 was different. Typically, we would expect to find the first 3 components in the order of the background, the known, and the unknown components. But in this abstract, the order was modified to the background, the unknown, and the known components. The background came first, which was typical, but the known and the unknown components were flipped. But this modification in this paper made sense to me. In the author's context, there were 2 knowns, or we can also say that the known component has 2 elements, that is, 2 hypotheses to test. And these hypotheses were explained carefully so that the readers can understand the main question of the paper stated in the unknown component. In this abstract, we will read the big question first, and then we will see the explanations of the two elements of the question. The question first, and the explanations next. This will be the author's writing style. And the flow was logical in the context. And this is the reason why I think that it was very effective in this specific paper to swap the order of the known and the unknown components. In fact, these authors tend to place important statements early in a paragraph. If you read the entire paper, you will find that a key statement often comes at the very top of a paragraph. This makes an easy reading. It was so much fun for me to read the entire paper, although I have no prior knowledge in this field. Authors are free to write in their own style. In this abstract, the authors were very good at writing logically. In later episodes, we will talk about how to read the rest of a paper, such as the introduction and the discussion sections. So you do not have to worry about them now. The second variation in the structure of the abstract was that it did not have one of the 8 structural components. The conclusions component was missing. But as I mentioned earlier today, the result number 3 out of the 5 results was clearly written, so that this sentence effectively served as the conclusions component. It clearly answered the question which was posed in the unknown component. Question-answer loop was opened and closed beautifully. So overall, there were 2 variations: the reversed order of the known and the unknown components, and the superficial absence of the conclusions component. But these variations in this abstract were no problem in my mind. Lesson. Now, what is today's lesson? I think that the abstract that we read today is excellent. I felt that way because I could read the author's intention for each sentence and the author's intention for performing the research very well. This was especially true for the first 3 components, that is, the background, known, unknown components. I'm outside the author's field, but still I could read the abstract well. The authors were careful, and they wrote clearly in a reader-friendly manner with detailed explanations. These features were of high quality throughout the rest of the paper, and they started with the first 3 components in the abstract. As a reader, I always appreciate the authors who write kindly for the readers, so that the readers outside the field can easily understand the content. So, a lesson. After reading an abstract, it will be helpful for us to analyze the structure. Whether 8 components are used in the abstract, how they are used, and how they contribute to the overall message of the abstract. After reading the abstract of this paper, you might want to ask questions. For example, you might want to ask 4 questions. 1. What do the authors mean when they say digital technologies? What are the examples? 2. What do the authors mean by the cognitive functions? And how did the authors of the analyzed papers test them? 3. This work looked at the association between technology use and cognitive functions. Can the authors talk about which caused which? And 4. What is the effect of digital technology on other generations, like younger ones? All are good and interesting questions. For the answers, you will want to read the entire paper. In fact, if you feel you want to read the paper, then the abstract you read must have been written very well. Your action. Please go ahead and read the abstract yourself after this episode. I will show you the links to the paper in the episode description. When you finish reading the abstract, please tell me how you feel about it. Does it read smoothly? Do you like it? Or do you find something in the abstract that you want to improve? I would like to hear from you. Please send me an email. My email address is ideas@synaptologica.com. Thank you for joining me in today's episode of Foundational Skills in Life Sciences. I'm Dr. Synaptologica. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.